Hi, and welcome to another ISOOSI chat, our regular roundtable discussion about search, social, and all things marketing. I'm Carlos Fernandes, president of ISOOSI, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different to our usual show. We'll be taking a look at a website of one of our audience to see if there's items we can see that would help him improve it. And it just so happens that our patient today, is none other than our old friend and past panelist, Christopher Vogelman. So we have the doctor on the operating table, and we have the mad ISOOSI lunatics looking at how we can help him improve his site. Everything from UI, UX, user interface, user experience, to branding and SEO. So joining me in the clinic today is none other than the Black Knight himself, Ammon, ISOOSI's search marketing consultant and resident ISOOSI chat expert. And we have Erik Stafford, creative director at ISOOSI, an all-round expert on branding and conversion. So, quick introduction, Christopher, for those that have not seen you on all the Hangouts that you're on.
I am the infamous Dr. Christopher Vogelman. I've been a practicing chiropractor for 27 years, but then got the inspiration at the tender age of 55 to start a software and consulting business called Epic Win Systems, which focuses on creating greater engagement, undying loyalty, and greater return on investment for businesses. And I wore my special shirt, by the way. That's my Geek Out shirt for today.
Looks good. So Christopher's got a, do you want to give us just a little bit of background about the site that we'll be looking at? I know that, it's relatively new, it's work in progress, and you're actually working on it as we speak, and you have some other sites but how did this new business and new site come about?
Well, the Reader's Digest version is that I was actually working several years ago on creating an integrative medical practice that would be actually a chain of clinics up and down the East Coast of the United States. And I had actually received a $10 million investment from a group of investors to create these clinics. And I thought, well, the fastest path to refunding the money for these people was to actually use the process known as gamification. So I went down to Tampa, hired a consultant, and during the process of that consultation, a question was asked of me, which was, do you really want to do this? And I hesitated for a moment, and I said, no. He said, the consultant said, you're already chained to one practice. Why would you want to chain yourself to 6 additional offices? And so I came to the realization that I was more interested in selling intellectual property than necessarily putting out fires up and down the East Coast, dealing with HR issues, insurance reimbursement, and all those other wonderful things that go along with a very large group of medical practices. And so Epic Win Systems came out of my desire to get involved not just in gamification, but in creating a software as a service platform that would allow for people to have a totally immersive experience within a business where they would be rewarded for sharing content, for commenting on blogs, and for a number of other behaviors. And it's as if my career has circled back, because years ago I did my undergraduate at Harvard in psychology, and I used to study with David McClelland, who is the professor who founded need theory and the psychology of achievement, and also studied with B.F. Skinner. Actually used to, on a regular basis, have dinner with Skinner once a month in our dining hall, and that's a whole other hangout series of stories. But that's where I've come to now, which is creating the website that will essentially be the interface for potential clients, typically CEOs, CMOs, and those entrepreneurs who happen to be in startups with a certain amount of cash on hand and want to have a very fast, a very rapid rise to the top of search for their own particular businesses.
Cool. So yeah, we were just talking about it briefly. So hopefully we'll do one of these hangouts once a month, and the aim of it is for us to kind of only really get a look at it, 5-10 minutes before or half an hour before, and really give you what what hits us first, which generally can sometimes be the low-hanging fruit, and things that you might be able to change pretty quickly. But we all had. So I don't know if you want to kick it off, Ammon, in terms of because I didn't know, obviously, coming to the website first of all, that there was some software that was imminent. Obviously, that's kind of not there yet, and it's obviously not ready.
No,
yet.
It's almost as if I'm selling vaporware. So
yeah. So let's get started. The first thing, and it's something Erik noted straight away. It's very black and white. It kind of all feels faded grey. It's not as bright as you'd expect for the logo you've got. The rest of the page doesn't seem to go with that logo. It's very difficult to see exactly who it's aiming for from the overall look of the page. It's telling me nothing. I've got to dive into the read, and I always think a really good site, at first look who it's aimed at, and this one you don't get that. You've got to dig in. The images that stand out for me, all wrong. I hesitate to say it, but to me these images look like somebody's gone to their local stock image site, typed in a keyword and grabbed whatever the first image was. Look at this one.
That was actually my first impression when I saw this version of the site. So yeah.
The first one is it looks like it's selling adventure holidays. It's great if it was selling Indiana Jones costumes, but there's nothing about that map and magnifying glass and rope that looks particularly fun to me, and certainly nothing that's to do with business or gamification. It looks completely the opposite of the market you'd be really targeting with that. The crowd scene for
it's behavioral design.
It's not. I think what's happened is your designer has just thrown himself off on a roof, and that's the crowd looking at his dead body lying there in shame.
Well, I wanted to take the rope and hang myself, but that was a different story. So.
Hey, guys,
that's where I would have wanted to see. That's where I would have wanted to see your guys on the mouse wheel. That's behavioural design.
Yeah, exactly.
There's nobody leading anybody doing anything there. That's just a crowd looking at something you can't see. How engaging is that? You've got the gamification thing, which to me says conflict. The only thing they're not paying attention to is anything but each other, which kind of makes the game completely irrelevant to this. Gamification. Let me build you content that will be completely ignored. It's the opposite.
Can I use that as a tagline?
And the augmented reality, even that, considering there must be so many pictures of people with wearable devices, why have you got somebody with a tablet?
Right.
I know where they're going with it, but it doesn't look like I'm seeing through a piece of smart glass. It looks like somebody's holding a tablet up in front, so it looks like just a doctored image, and it doesn't work. So the first things that stood out there was
images.
None of this is communicating the words on the page, and knowing a bit about what you're trying to do and a lot about your personality, none of that's on this site. And I hate to say it, Chris, but the picture of you on this site isn't right either.
I would admit to that, because a lot of that stuff has come about. It was a haphazard. The unfortunate part is the designer kind of fitted in between things that he was doing, new job, new move, and new baby. And I think my baby almost became aborted in the process. So.
Well, it certainly means he's under a lot of stress, and
yeah.
that doesn't help design. If we can have a look at that image in a moment, Chris. Yeah, there we go.
Sorry.
The problem there.
I just want to jump in, Ammon, for 1 second. Let people know, guys. The link you want to be visiting, epicwinsystems.com. Just in case we neglected to mention that, I know that Carlos has got it up on the screen. But the website we're talking about, epicwinsystems.com. So if you want to head on over there in another browser window. Sorry, Ammon.
Yeah. The only real problem with this image is your smile hasn't reached your eyes.
Trying to remember. Yeah, you know, that's an interesting. Where that photo was taken, I no longer use that photo actually, because it was taken in the attic of a friend's house in Middleburg, Virginia, when the light wasn't quite right, and it was done by not a professional photographer, but I was also looking up somewhat. So the staging was bad. Actually, the selfie that I took in San Francisco at Rosa Pistola restaurant that I use now is better than that picture.
Yeah, yeah. This is it. I would say sometimes instead of getting a professional photographer, it's often better to get a friend to photograph you, because it becomes a fun experience. You're used to smiling at them, and you just get a warmer picture, and that's what needs to be there. And also,
that actually was a friend.
Every other page, you know, we've got this big image at the top. We've got a guy humping a giant chess piece on the particular one. That should be your picture across the top. You are the subject of this page. It doesn't need any other picture.
The hangout cat belongs there too. So.
Yes.
All right, let's leave the hangout cat out of this. Let's take some notes and get serious here. No, I'm just teasing.
That's what replays are for. If I go down looking at notes the whole time, you'll think I'm disengaged.
I'm totally teasing. I love the hangout cat.
So that's the overall look. I'll quickly go into the feel of the site, because this is so important. This is about gamification and about engagement and about compelling content, and it doesn't provide any of that. There is nothing fun about this site. And one of the things I was saying is this is one of those sites where you've got to have little hidden Easter eggs all through that people are looking to find. Some of them are very easy and some of them aren't. It needs little bits that when people take certain actions you want them to take, some little gems appear from the thing they've clicked or moused over, goes up into the scoreboard, and when they get to certain parts of the scores, it unlocks new content for them.
Right. In fact, there's some very easy. The irony behind all of this is that we're working on the widgets or the plugins that will actually do that, and there are some available right now that can be used that can be used as privately labeled and just utilized on anyone's site, and they're not terribly expensive.
Yeah, yeah. I'd even for this particular site, I'd even go back to some of the old technologies of using JavaScript to track the mouse position and have funny little effects around the cursor. It's cutesy and it's old, but you know what? There's still something fun about it, and people do find themselves moving their mouse all over. And then you can detect when somebody's moving that cursor about and say, caught you playing.
So you're going to analyze that from heat maps.
You can quickly pick it up just from the shifting focus, and there's so many ways of being able to make this interactive, and that's what this site needs. You're selling the whole concept of how fun, engaging content makes for better results on a website that, I'm sorry, at the moment isn't fun or engaging.
Yeah,
so let me just go. Sorry, after you, Chris.
I would say, yeah, I interpret it as rather static, despite the fact these sliders are whipping by. The sliders actually make me a little nervous. I'm glad I'm not an epileptic.
So just to go back a few steps, the website is eventually the vehicle for selling
software.
For selling software as a service. That's correct.
Okay. And it's really all around gamification. Is it not? See, I thought when I first looked at it, it was about helping brands kind of get that engagement and help increase their influence, but not just gamification. Whatever.
Yeah, your perception actually is correct, because gamification is one tool of engagement, but it's not the be-all
only. Yeah. So right now it's kind of almost too down just too focused on gamification for my liking. And I thought, one thing I said to Ammon in the green room was, I thought that the selling, if we look at what's going to actually sell it, I thought that you were the product. You've been a keynote speaker, you've been on Fox News,
as a consultant.
CNBC, as a consultant.
Yeah.
And when we've worked with consultants or speakers and before, I know that you've got the about page, who is Dr. V, and it's got your picture there. And I didn't mind the picture personally, but I'd like to see you on the homepage with those icons of the TV stations and where I just, and maybe that's not where you're going with this. Maybe it is the software, but I think until you've got that kind of almost the brand recognition of the software, you're the driving factor.
Well, and that is true to an extent, because my personal brand will extend into the branding of the company, but I didn't want to call it Vogelman Systems or anything silly like that, because the end goal is to become either an acquisition target or to go IPO, but more than likely it's going to be an acquisition target for some other software company.
So do you have any other Epic Win domain names?
Oh, I do. Oh my goodness. I have a number of them. The only one I couldn't get was the one epicwin.com, and that's only because they want that a fairly ridiculous price for that particular URL.
Yeah, the reason I asked the name, I love, but it may be, I think you got to start 30,000 feet higher, and that's, I think, maybe what Carlos and Ammon and I are all kind of getting at, is that you need to analyze the offer and the audience. And once you've determined that, you can look at the images, and you can look at the copy, and you can look, even more importantly, at the engagement, because that's what you're selling, right? If we were out there selling mobile sites, you can bet your ass that our website would be mobile compatible, right? And so I think you need to start with the audience. Is it, an audience of people that knows what these terms are and what these terms mean? Do you need to educate them or not? If you need to educate them, the copy and the images are going to be different than if you don't, right? And I think that would be where I would start. And you also need to determine what that offer is going to be. Software, then this Who is Dr. V tab in the navigation is not quite so important, right? If you're selling software here, maybe you wind up with Epic Win speeches or Epic Win keynotes, and you sell sort of, Epic Win consulting, and you sell sort of consulting services there, and you sell yourself as a speaker maybe on a different website, right? But I think you really need to kind of hone in on what the offer is and who the audience is, and that's going to determine a lot of the language and also how you're going to engage them. But I agree completely with Ammon. I think there's got to be something here that either sparkles or shines or gives people points or unlocks different areas of the site or just pops up out of nowhere and they click on it and it's like, wow, where did this come from? What's in this section of the site, right? I think there has to be something there that shows people.
Well, the something there will be there. So.
The thing I'm thinking of is the site needs little fantastic delights, so that people catch themselves being the mouse on the wheel and laugh along with you and understand what's going on. And that works. It's not just gamification. That's all about understanding the psychology and showing that you've understood them as well as they're going to, you're a step ahead, and that's always a selling point.
Yeah,
I actually agree with Carlos that no matter what you do, your experience is going to be a huge part of getting this launched.
Yeah,
so
and we all
right
agree.
Now is important.
Yeah, we all agree that we like the branding, right? And the other thing that we know is that the stuff is on the way, right? We know that you're working on adding engagement and adding sort of some Easter eggs and stuff like that to the site. But I think it does irreparable harm to the brand to have anything live at all that doesn't have some of that. And so what I would suggest is, have a call to action at the top that links to some sort of funky quiz or questionnaire and just sucks people into some sort of funnel that you could build very easily just in WordPress and ask people some snarky, engaging, entertaining, really intelligent questions, which, Chris, you've been on our panel. We know that you know how to do all of that, right?
Calling me snarky?
Well, no, I'm saying maybe lead people through a process. Click here to see if you qualify for a free consultation, where we all know that everyone does. But after 3 or 4 clicks and really clever answers or engagements, they get a form. And you can maybe even say on that form, look, this took us, 37 minutes to build. It took no technical knowledge at all. This is what's possible.
Yeah. Well, because ultimately, the platform that we are, we're in the midst of the software architecture and also in the wireframing right now. And it's all designed around mobile. Mobile is the platform. Later, you look at something that would be more on desktops or on legacy systems. But ultimately, we're not even going to touch legacy because we really want it to be a cloud solution. So we have already made that determination that that mobile is going to be the design of the platform itself. And I've narrowed down mainly because of contacts to whom I've made, some CEOs in different parts of the country. You really can't be all things to all people, but I've looked primarily in the energy sphere, in the entertainment sphere because of some connections I have within Hollywood, and also looking at retail. Surprisingly, the healthcare stuff I've actually stayed away from only because it's a very complicated market with respect to insurance and privacy issues and other things along that way. Yeah. So in terms of target markets, they really are CEOs of probably small to medium-sized companies, more in the Fortune 10,000 range rather than the Fortune 500.
Yeah, I think even just a video of you explaining what you just explained about your vision and about mobile and stuff would help enormously right now. A lot of the people on the Hangout are kind of echoing what we're all saying, which is that it needs more Christopher Vogelman.
And I agree. I mean, the initial design by the same designer, it's interesting because the history of it, this designer had said that, oh, I've got a great idea for you, let me go work on it, and I'll present it to you. And the entire site was in black, and it was designed as if it was for gamers. And that was a little disturbing to me, although I understood the reference immediately, which was the black background with the old little letters from like the 1960s or 70s, which said, "Would you like to play a game?" And it was from war games. Would you like to play a game, Professor Falcon? Yeah. So it was just I got that, but it was clearly the branding that I was going for. I didn't get that message across clearly, and just wasted quite a few hours, if not actually more like weeks, trying to get that message across. So
I think that's something that a lot of people miss, is that they still think that gamification is very obviously the games. I mean, it's great when you're trying to explain the concepts to do something that's quite clearly a game so they can see those elements in it. The points, the badges, the unlockings, all of that kind of stuff. And, I think there should be some of that on the site somewhere to explain that, even if it was just in that.
That's what we refer to as the most primitive form of gamification. It's the PBL solution, which is points, badges, leaderboards. Unfortunately, like points and badges, they have a shelf life of about 3 to 4 months or so, and then people just lose interest and they drop off.
That's LinkedIn's whole model.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do think there is a danger that people that don't really understand gamification, immediately you start thinking of hardcore computer games. They're thinking World of Tanks and World of Warcraft instead of thinking of those little apps on your phone that have got gems or Tetris or the ones that really are obsessions that people will log into 6-7 times while they're out. And they'll be doing it on their breaks at work. Those are the games that are the addictive ones.
Well, as a former Boy Scout, I can tell you that having your badges on a sash across your chest, you do a lot of work to get those badges, and you wear them proudly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said it in all jest about LinkedIn, but it's not even about the games or apps or things like that. I mean, there's many social networks have been used. It's about how to get that behavioral engagement. And the social networks have done it in spades. LinkedIn, you go getting, people saying, what's the word? When people say that you're good at something, I've lost the word.
But the endorsements.
The endorsements. And it's like a game for folks. But yeah, people keep going back to LinkedIn for it.
Yeah, Mint.com has done a great job of this as well. By using goal trackers and sort of really cool and easy to use like charts and graphs that kind of show your financial plans and stuff like that. And, I view that as a type of gamification. I'm not just thinking apps and points and unique titles. I'm thinking, and just on the absolute basics of conversion, right? There's got to be a call to action at the top of this website. And I would prefer if that call to action led to some sort of interesting and fun quiz or series of events that happen that lead people to qualifying for some sort of consultation. But if you can't do that, then at least have a really strong call to action with the phone number. If you put the phone number up there and don't tell people to use it, they never ever will.
So I'm going to just hit on some other points, unless you were going to just jump in, Ammon.
I was going to quickly pull up a question from the audience. Wanted to know whether when you were saying about mobile first, whether you're talking about the software or the website. The
software. Yeah.
Yeah.
Snarky. Yeah. Sparky, but not snarky.
That's.
Well, I'm gonna circle back and hit some positive stuff. I love the logo. Yeah. You know, I think that those colors can work if you kind of weave it, you know, throughout the site. But I do like the logo a lot.
Yeah, the logo was a great project. I mean, that was actually my friend Melanie Spring, she has a company called Cicerina in Bethesda, and she outsourced that to one of her designers in California. And I really wanted something that spoke to fun, that spoke to some level of enthusiasm, hence the exclamation point is what I had suggested, and that was in the style of almost like the comic book or graphic novels. So that it had that older type style to it. The challenge I had with the website here is that it's so incredibly tiny in the upper left-hand corner that I actually felt almost that would be better featured in a larger format.
Yeah, I think it's too small. I mean, we just did a website and you know they were on a pretty restrictive budget, so we used a similar theme to this, but we, you know, and that was it was actually a flying beaver, and we had to put this flying beaver logo, but we made it bigger by kind of cleverly kind of making it overlap the you know, the image rotation system as well. So it actually appeared pretty big. The other thing I do like, you know, obviously you've chosen WordPress, good choice in terms of being able to update it yourself, and I'm a big fan of that top you know, that top nav, the sticky nav, so that when you scroll. You can see that obviously it stays up there, and I think that, you know, I'm a big fan of that from a usability perspective, that nav stays up at the top, and you know that's kind of an option within the theme that you've got there, but it's good that I like it. I don't know about the others, but that's something that I like.
No, I like it as well.
The you know obviously using WordPress, and I want to just kind of touch on just some of the kind of, again, this is low-hanging fruit, and although I totally get what Eric's saying about, you know, if you put something out there and it's not quite right, it can do a lot of damage to your brand, but I'm one of these people also that likes to get things out there and starts to kind of put seeds out there, you know, so that you've got some equity building, even though it might not be completely right, you're working on it, and I kind of go that route. I know what Eric's saying, but on that note, I think there's some things that you can do since you are putting content on here already. And if we go to the blog, I want to touch on your Yoast plugin in a minute as well. But if you go to the blog, I'm going to just click on here. I want to bring Ammon and Erik into this in a minute about how these videos actually display right here. Because although, see, as you can see right on there, which is cool, you know, users don't need to click into the actual pages. But from an analytics perspective, I've got some concerns about tracking, and because this page is going to get a lot of views, and your insight pages are maybe not, and that's going to it's going to be clouding your decisions about what's working or not. Granted, you'll be able to tell from your YouTube views. But from a website analytics perspective,
I'd be giving each video its own page only.
Right. Yeah.
I'd have thumbnails that when you click them take you straight through to that particular post, that particular page.
Yeah.
So your analytics are nice and clean.
I agree. I want to say a little bit more on that in a minute, but one of the things that you, obviously being a big Google Plus advocate and you know, somebody that's really doing well on Google Plus, and making a lot of connections, we really need you to get authorship integrated properly, so that these pages are tied in, and you can. Yoast has a a function to do that. I'm going to post a link in the event page for you to take a look at, and it's very simple to get Yoast plugin to tie this in from a Google Plus authorship perspective. And what you need to do, even though you've got Google Plus up here, and that could go to your brand page, really, if you're doing these posts, I would have it so that these are tied to your personal Google Plus author, your personal page. So I'll post a link in there, but that's going to start to give you equity for all the work that you are doing right now, so that you're not losing any of that power.
And by the way, Chris, whenever Carlos or Ammon tell people about this, they have never heard of it, just like me and maybe just like you, but I was like, oh, wow, look at that. I had no idea. I had no idea how to do any of that, and most of the people we talk to don't either.
One of the things that I'll bring up, because WordPress has come up already, and this may be a little contentious for people, but actually, WordPress is brilliant for having easy updates to parts of the content. Find which parts of your content that's going to be, and often it's just the blog and maybe some of the bio section, and only use WordPress for those. I like the actual pages that are more static on a site to be static, because WordPress puts in a lot of extra code. There's a lot of ways that the design is done that has to work across a whole blog, but it isn't needed for a single page, and you can get a much leaner, cleaner page by coding that as a individual page rather than having all of the blog functions, all of the scripts that need to run across the whole blog are on every single page, and for a static page you don't need that. And I always think that the leaner you get a page, the better, still today. Google does use page speed as a factor. So every bit of code that isn't displaying, that's loading up a script that in some cases isn't even needed on this page, it's loading up bits for the comment box that isn't on a page, or those kind of things. You don't want that. So often what you need to do is the static pages are built as pages, HTML pages. They don't need to be existing within the blog, and the blog should be limited to the sections where it is important to be able to update them quickly. That's where you've got a benefit to offset the fact that the code is not quite as good on most WordPress blogs. There are ways of getting it much leaner, but it's always going to be that the code is fatter and more bloated on any WordPress page than it needs to be, because it's got the functions for lots of different aspects of the blog.
Fat and bloated just doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah, another thought there as well is that if you're outside the WordPress framework, it becomes a lot more affordable to put cool little Easter eggs in different spots, whereas if you're inside WordPress, you may have to actually hire a WordPress developer to start hacking away at the code in order to do some of the cool stuff that I know that you want to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, again, going on to I'm going to kind of mix my stuff up with good bits and bad. So, again, it's good that the developer chose a responsive theme, so that, eventually you can maybe keep this design or, work at some of our recommendations, but the basis of it seems to be pretty good from a responsive, so, it's looking okay on a mobile device. So the authorship, I don't know if you want to mention anything about the fonts. I personally, I thought the fonts were a little bit too small and not from a readability. I know I'm only in my mid-40s, but I did find that it was a little bit too small of a font. I do like bigger fonts, and especially a lot of the other things that I'm seeing on the website are big. Like you've got a big video up at the top. I'd just like to see the fonts a little bit bigger and a little bit more popping out.
I'd almost be tempted to have a little bit of fun with that. A lot of sites, they've got an easy reading mode, which has large fonts for people whose eyesight isn't so great. You could have a difficulty level to the site. So easy mode.
Make it look like an eye chart all the way down.
Easy mode for the the gamification of the site. Really clear, easy to read, big text. Probably bigger than most people would want, but if somebody's got very poor eyesight, it makes it great for them. You've got regular mode, which is as Carlos is saying there, a little bit clearer than it is now.
In
And then you've got
advanced
the
mode,
difficult
play some rave music on advanced mode, right?
So
They earn a point. They level up by being able to see smaller type.
Just about. We all know that only the kids go for the hard modes anyway. You know.
So
it kind of enticing.
I was going to say the other things before I forget are I don't know what's happened with the Yoast. So again, important things to take note of if you're going to replay this after is the authorship. I think that's a biggie. Anytime you put in images in, just take the time to put an alt tag and an image title tag on there. I'm a kind of, again, firm believer in the little things make all together make big things. So you're familiar with what I mean in there, Christopher, right? Alt tags.
I haven't heard the term bandied about, but that's
right. Basically, it's just the hover over text on a.
Okay, gotcha.
And when you put an image into WordPress, it automatically pops a little pop-up thing there and says, alt text, and then I think it's under the advanced properties for image title. But I always put it in. Some people who are heavy into SEO kind of will put keywords, make sure there's a kind of keyword in there. But however you do it, I would put alt and image title tags on images. The other thing I want to mention is your Yoast plugin does not seem to be working correctly, because right now these pages don't have meta descriptions on, and even the so the one things I wanted to mention about from an SEO perspective on a really kind of high, easy level kind of things to quickly pick off is on all the. Let's just go to. Oh, you've got it on there, Ammon?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're looking at the screen now, it looks like
you'll pull it up.
What's that? Yeah, I've got it up.
Yeah.
So it looks like there is a meta description in there and a title tag and things, but they're not going in the right place. And
no, they're behind the header in the body. They're not even in the head tags at all. Basically, you've got invisible text here.
Yeah, and they're not even in the right place, the meta description tag. So, and now, if you scoot up, Ammon, just go to where the title tag would be. So there's something that your developer basically needs to check that Yoast installation and just figure out what's going on there, because basically it's affecting how your website is shown in the search engine results pages in terms of the rich snippet that kind of comes under the link. And then in terms of your title, okay, on your home page, you want to use your brand name. We usually advise clients if you maybe highlight the title tag, Ammon.
Well, I want to pull this up first, because that doc type, it's been commented out, there is no doc type declaration, which is going to make this go straight into Quirks mode for some browsers as well, which will interfere with some aspects of the design, but the title, yeah.
So yeah, again, we're kind of more of a fan of on the home page. Yeah, you can use your brand name, but then on internal pages, we like to flip it around, and whatever the focus is of it. Just say you're writing a page about how to increase engagement for enterprise, level brands or whatever. That would be at the left-hand side of the title tag, and then maybe separated with the pipe symbol that you've got there, and then the brand name, your Epic Win Systems after. So that's what we usually recommend, is try to have whatever the focus is of the page, put that first, even in the title tag. So and then the other thing just before I shut up is get analytics sorry, I have two things. Make sure you get analytics on the website, because right now you don't have Google Analytics on. So even though, as soon as you start trying to get traffic and you are writing blogs and you are getting people to come to the website via Google+, get analytics on. It only takes a few minutes and it's worth it, because you can start to see where you're getting the traffic from. And then my final thing is, as I showed you today, I think I tested your contact form, and you said, "Wow, nobody's ever done that before."
Exactly.
And, the reason I tested it was actually to see if it went to a thank you URL, right? I wasn't. I was just submitting it because, I'm a big fan of making sure that you can track whatever it is you. Right now, you're wanting people to contact you, or I mean, you're obviously wanting people to read your articles and engage, but it would be good if you started to get some inquiries, especially when there's more of an offer there, right? And having a thank you URL there, you can set that up in analytics as a goal and start to track where you're getting those conversions from. So right now, if you submit the contact form on the on your contact page, the URL doesn't change, and so it's going to be a little bit more difficult for you to track it when you do have analytics, installed.
Now, I've heard from some people there's a bit of a controversy, or what the UK people say, controversy, about using Google Analytics versus some other type of analytics. Is there any truth to that?
Well, we'll get Ammon. Ammon will probably speak for a few hours on that about how you should.
I won't set that one loose.
Ammon's a firm believer of making sure you. I won't speak for him, but making sure that you've got your own. It's your data.
Why share it with Google?
Why share it with Google?
That's what I'd heard in the past. So,
and
we had
it's the whole thing of deciding what package to go with. A default mode will go, Google Analytics, before you've even thought about what you want to track, and then analyze whether Google Analytics is the best one for the data you want. And that whole ethos there is wrong. Just absolutely wrong. You should first know what you want to be able to track, and then you should work out which analytics is going to do that best for you.
Well, ironically, the software platform that we're developing contains that instantaneous feedback loop, and it's all about collecting big data and then putting it into the proper categories.
Yeah,
so,
and that's
Ammon just showed Ammon just showed a question from the audience as well about the Yoast plugin. Do we like it or do we not like it, and why? Carlos and I like Yoast. I mean, there are tools out there that are great, other tools out there that are great, but just like analytics, if someone were to say to me, should I spend a lot of time researching and figuring out exactly which WordPress plugin to use and which analytics software to use, or should I just get something up and running now as quickly as possible? There's definitely different schools of thought on that. And the thing I like about analytics and about Yoast is that they're really pretty easy to install and get going with, and no matter what, we all agree that you should be capturing your data and tracking what's happening.
I think Yoast is an excellent place to start, and unless you're having somebody dedicated to your SEO, then Yoast is a very sensible first move. It's going to do an awful lot of the grunt work for you very, very quickly. Yoast himself really does support the product, and the forums and community around it are very, very, very good.
Yeah, I think that again, I know where you're coming from about having your own data and making sure you do. If you've got somebody permanently looking after your server and you can kind of get those log files, then yeah, I'm a firm believer in that. I was very scared for a long time of getting Google Analytics on. I think even when we started discussing it with you, Ammon, I was having second thoughts about Google Analytics. They're looking at my data. They're looking at my bounce rates. They're gonna penalize me for this and that. And I ended up putting it on because I just found it was giving me the data that I needed without without some of the legwork that I would have to do with other systems and other internal resources.
It's always better to go with Google Analytics than prevaricate and do nothing. So if you're going to stop and think about it completely, get Google Analytics in there while you think. But really, in long term, if you're building something larger than a blog, I always think you want your own analytics, you want your own data, and keep that to yourself. Partly because it makes it easier to work with. You really can start to work with that data in real time when you've got a copy of it on your servers.
Yeah, in terms of
not just keeping big data, but using it. Go on, Carlos.
Yeah, we have our own CMS system, our kind of proprietary one that we use for a lot of the bigger clients. But again, we do work with small businesses that are budget constrained, and when we do use WordPress, we're big fans of Yoast, and it wouldn't take long to sort these issues out. Right now, if you look here, again, the only thing I'm bringing up here is you've got 2 mentions of the brand, and I just think that that's redundant to have this first one, Epic Win Systems there, and then who is Dr. V, and then another Epic Win Systems. That's a 2-second change in Yoast, and then you could have these redundant, these. I would get it so that it was the focus thing first, and then have that first part of it removed.
Yeah, usability-wise, that's really important. That the brand name should always go last, except on the homepage. The homepage is where somebody who's interested in your brand, searching for your brand, that's where you want them to land. But every other page after that, you think about somebody who's bookmarked 4 different pages from your site because they wanted to go through these things in depth. Now, in my bookmarks, I've only got room for the first 3 words when I'm looking at the list of links. Guess what those first 3 words are? Epic Win Systems for every single page. So I can't tell when I'm looking at my bookmarks which page is which. And that's why in usability you always put the important unique words first. The unique stuff about that page goes first, and then the brand at the end.
Makes sense.
But other than, did you want to just quickly talk about this? I know we briefly touched on it, Ammon. Because I think there would be different schools of thought on this as well. The main, I'm trying to pull it up, the main blog page and how those videos are all viewable right from the main blog page. I know that you were saying it would be better from an analytics perspective for them to be all on their own current pages, which they are. But are we saying that you should just kind of use an image there and not have them displaying there?
Exactly that. I'm not a fan when you've got any kind of blog content that's being done with WordPress. I don't like to use full posts as snippets. I don't believe you should ever have one of those things where your whole post is going onto the page that shows all of the things in this category. I also don't really like to use the paragraph itself from the piece if I can help it easily. That's fine on a personal blog, but really you kind of want a unique thing that's written as an introduction rather than the introductory paragraph. I think it gives you unique content across 2 places that way, instead of bits of this page are just lots of bits of other pages stuck together. Sometimes your category page or a tag page, for anybody that's using tags, which I advise you not to, for anyone who's doing that, it's kind of like they've built their own scraper site. It's taking bits of lots of other pages, and that's all it's doing with there's nothing unique in there. I often think that a unique introduction to the page works a lot better. You also usually see better conversion rates because you're writing for the purpose. You're getting somebody interested in a particular article from the outside rather than just serving up that leading paragraph.
I'm going to.
How do you feel about tags, Carlos?
Tags could, yeah. There's very few websites that I've ever seen that are actually doing tags correctly, because of the amount of problems that I see in terms of crawling issues and in terms of crawl budget, and they're all getting indexed and all these other problems with them. I would just stay away. For the average user, I would stay away.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's one of those things. There are some sites where you can categorize things. When you do that, try to find one category for each post. Don't get carried away. A lot of people, oh, right, this post could apply to these 4 things, so I'm going to put it in all 4 categories. That's going to lead to duplicate content on your category pages. Several categories, especially when you've only got a few posts in, or the last 4 posts are all going to be in the same category. You've got duplicate content. You don't want that. So try and find the one category most times that this page most belongs to in, and then cross-link it if need be. Definitely never put categories and tags together, but there are certain sites where the content is so broad you can't really categorize it in the standard way, and sometimes their tags can be a very good way of putting various things together, because one particular tag is only going to be 2 posts out of 100. So for that kind of thing, tags can work, but never use tags and categories together on the same site, really.
Cool. Without seeing some of the other, I don't know what other plugins you may have on there, but I think we've given you a pretty good. I mean, if I had to pick out, say, 4 or 5 things that you could probably get done, or your developer could probably get done in an hour, that are going to help you the most. Again, I would go back to the authorship. Look at your fonts, your actual font type. I know that that's kind of more personal opinion. I just don't find it a very easy readable font, and the color of it, I think, should kind of stand out a little bit more. I think those are 2 things that you could really do very, very quickly. Then Yoast, and if you need any kind of advice on how to, what is that, Eric? An egg?
Call to action. Call to action. Very easy to add.
Some kind of Vulcan.
That's my I'm yelling at you to put the call to action on that.
Yeah.
I thought that's the big A.
But yeah, the Yoast thing, Christopher, would only take, again, 2 seconds to fix. And if you need to, bot me an email, or just send me a quick email. I'll help you fix that pretty quickly.
Okay.
Or just ask your developer, and if he doesn't know, then fire him off. Anyway, the other thing that I was going to mention was the contact form URL analytics. You could probably get all that stuff done in under an hour, and I think it's all going to help you a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of getting something out perfect versus getting it out there, this was really important to me because I was going to a lot of events, meeting a lot of people, and I couldn't send them anywhere. So I had to have something, and this actually is a vast improvement over the original WordPress site that I had, which was sparse at best in terms of its number of pages as well as content.
Yeah. Change it as well so that it doesn't say admin, as in like who's posting. On the little blogs at the bottom it says admin. Just get that to be Dr. Vogelman or Dr. V.
That's the developer posting and not using me. So.
But I would definitely want quite early on to get some fun things onto this.
Yeah.
Because one of the hardest parts today is getting links to a site without, having to buy them or getting in trouble with Google. And this is just another site to an extent. Yeah, it's your site, but there's nothing remarkable. There's nothing here that you could just give to somebody in the street or 10 people in the street, and one of them's going to go, oh, wow, that's cool, and want to tell somebody about. And that's kind of where you need this to go. And there's no reason with this content that it couldn't do that. Your ideas are good enough for that, so the site ought to be doing it too.
Well, I think the brand messaging is the key, because it really, I want to talk about fun, about engagement, about undying loyalty, about returning profits, but in general, an immersive experience like you might have in any game. It could be bingo or checkers or what have you. It doesn't necessarily have to be a video game or chess or whatever. It could be a scratch-off lottery ticket for that matter. That's still exciting.
On that level, I think there needs to be a playfulness with words through the text of the site as well, because that's another form of game, word games. Little mind games and word games that we play, and that's something that can very easily go in there and demonstrate a point again. It makes the content more engaging. Yes, it may turn some people off, but I think your core business is going to be improved by that. The people who really get it, and also those are going to be the people that you're going to want to work with more anyway, because it ties in with where you live. So yeah, definitely you want to go there. I think one of the things that makes that logo work in Epic Win is there's something monolithic, monumental about that text.
It reminds me of something with Monty Python on it.
I was just going to say that. Monty Python-esque. Yeah.
And that's what hasn't been translated into the rest of the site.
Right, I agree. I agree. In fact, part of me would I wouldn't mind just seeing that whole slider thing just disappear and go with something static and maybe have a little frame where I can have an intro video.
I love that.
Part of the reason that you want it to disappear is because the imagery is not right. It doesn't, well, you know, because that imagery is just pretty bland and could have been it's stock. It's not really summing up what you want to convey. I think that's part of the reason you want it to go.
Yeah, to an extent, I think sliders are overdone anyway. I'm bored of sliders. I've seen them. You know, it's the flavour of the month. It's like we've gone back to the 90s. Instead of animated GIFs, we've got sliders everywhere.
I do like the Kobe beef sliders at the local sushi restaurant.
Hey, Eric, do you remember back in 2004 when we built a... this was when Flash was really still being used a lot, and Erik was still is a great Flash designer and developer. Okay. And we did a website for a restaurant called Pelican Larry's, and we had this pelican drinking beer and like beer tokens and burping. You moused up. I wish we could show you that website. I'll probably dig out an archive of it. But you could hover over the pelican, and his beak would open, and a big burp would come out. It was just full of little kind of Easter eggs all over it, wasn't it? And it really went down so well with the
vibe.
Yeah.
I may need that because Vogelman in German means birdman.
You know, one of the things is that I think that kind of playfulness almost you've got a link that says mouse over here, and when you go to try and do it, no, not that mouse. Look at the bottom of the page, and there's this little mouse that you can lead up the page.
That's going on the wheel.
Something like that. Yeah, just those occasional little double think things that are fun. They're not going to work twice. So that's the kind of thing where you'd need to cookie somebody on the site. Once they've played it, they probably don't want to play it again. But yeah, that is exactly it. You want to surprise and delight in little ways that don't get in people's way too much, but they're fun. There's always a way to bypass it if they don't want to play. Because some people want gamification but really aren't themselves gamers. That's fine, as long as they've got good checkbooks.
Well, yeah, they can afford those really expensive hardware setups. I mean, gamers are really pushing the limits when it comes to chips and video cards.
And Hangouts. Live streaming, I learned so much from the gamers.
Yeah.
I'm just, as we wrap up, I'm just going to go back, Chris, to the thought of having some sort of do you qualify for a free consultation, leading into some very clever, very interesting series of questions that I know you could probably write in your sleep. I think that's extraordinarily easy to implement. I think it's really easy to do with WordPress, and I think it solves a lot of the problem we're having with you selling these services while not having your and very clever, budget, quick way to accomplish some of this. And I don't know if that's the verbiage you want to use. I don't know if you want to say, do you qualify for a free consultation? You may want to say, don't click here. However you want to do that. The thing that keeps popping into my mind is on our agency site that we present, to our clients, we have an Easter egg hidden on several of the pages. It comes up at random, and it's the only way to get to one of the pages on our site. It's not listed in the nav anywhere, and the page basically says, you must be hungry for results because you've kind of clicked on our carrot, right? It's a little carrot that just drops down onto the screen. It's a dangling carrot, right? And something like that, I think, solves a lot of your problems. And if you can find a way to do it on a budget, I think that's even cooler because that tells people you don't need to be knowledgeable about this. You don't need to have a huge budget. All you need is me. And I think that solves a lot of your problems.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking of Alanis Morissette. It was like, how about them transparent dangling carrots? But that's a whole other story. So.
Well, I want to just wrap up, and unless you've any last thoughts, but I want to thank Christopher, Dr. Vogelman, for popping on again to be our first in this kind of website clinic, if you will. We'll do once a month, and we'll probably do it on a regular Tuesday, maybe the last Tuesday in the month. But thanks. It takes courage to kind of put your website out there for
Absolutely.
people to.
And I don't even feel eviscerated at this point, so that's good.
Your designer might. So if he's watching, sorry,
he's going to get the link to this hangout, by the way.
He better fix some of those issues, otherwise I'm going to send Ammon over there to punch his tooth out. That's all I'm saying.
Well, yeah.
I just want to say there's been so many comments all the way through. I couldn't pull any up in the last half of the show because comment tracker's broken yet again. But yeah, there's plenty of advice and comments and things going on in the gallery. So brilliant.
Great.
Well, again, thanks to Ammon, thanks Erik, and tune in next week. We actually plugged it last week because I got the dates all mixed up. But we're doing a show next week on lifestyle business. And you want to check that out. So same time next week, Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern. Thanks very much, everybody. Thanks, Ammon. Thanks, Erik. Thanks, Christopher.